Welcome. Come with me on this video as I will show you how to install a sandstone bolstered edge veneer over a red brick. So to give the house street appeal, to lift its value, there's the end product as you see. Come with me on the video as I go through step by step in the application of quoins and sandstone veneer to the front of this house, adding a lot of value. Quoins are a precast moulding. They just need to be cut to length and installed with a mortar, a strong cement and plaster sand mix. Here I have cut the quoin to measure. Now I'm just standing it up to make sure that it fits under the eave line and fits onto the ground level just nicely. And now I'll start applying the mortar to install it. The mix is a strong plastering sand with white cement. 3-to-1 mix, so it's very strong. The mortar mix going into these quoins here is quite a wet mix. It's a strong plastering sand to cement mix, about 3 or 4-to-1. With a heavy dose, as you can see, I'm putting on quite heavily both sides because it's got to stick to the brick wall masonry finish, which is quite dry, so there's a lot of suction there. Now I'm going to put a little bit of stone on next to the quoins which I've installed. So I'm mixing up my mortar, very strong mix of sand and cement, and
Is it real stone?
yes. Now this stone is an imported stone into Australia. Most of the stones that come in veneer like this are from India, China or Indonesia. As you can see, I'm laying the stone with a liberal amount of mortar. It's got to adhere to that brick wall. As you can see, I don't use any chocks, no spacers, nothing to hold the stone up, and the stone's quite heavy. So it's important I get the texture of the mortar just perfect. Not too wet, not too dry, just so it's got enough suction onto that brick to make it stick. Oh, man. Now here I've laid that larger piece. Now there's going to be a gap there. So what I'm going to do now is get a medium size height piece and a narrow piece, and I'll cut them. I'll mark them and then I'll cut them on the cutting machine, which is a diamond blade here, so that I'll have a bit of variation in the pattern there. Now I've cut those two pieces of stone, so where the cut end is, I will bolster the edge there, chip off that sharp edge on both of them, and I'll lay them both up against that larger piece in the wall. So two different sizes up against that one to make it look a bit more detailed, add to the pattern. Here you can see me applying the sandstone veneer, the plastering sand. I'm putting it on quite thickly there. I leave about a 10 to 15 mil joint between each stone. It's going to rain in a minute. Terrible conditions. It's terrible conditions, I'm afraid. But nobody knows. Nobody cares, do they?
I know one thing, when's the best time to go out? When it's cold, when it's hot, when it's raining, and windy. People don't go out.
No, that's right. Get Larry in the photo too, Jesse.
Do you want to know that?
Larry wants to be in it too.
No, I don't want to. I want to get a copy of it though.
Now, as you just saw, I use a mortar gun when I do my pointing. I get the consistency of that mortar just right, that it goes through the gun. Now the gun holds a lot of mortar. It's much, much quicker than the old traditional way of hawk and trowel. The gun also has pressure which, through the mechanism of the plunger, it forces the mortar all the way back to the wall, so it fills the joint completely. Now what I'm doing there is I'm using the trowel just to push it back further. So that mortar there will go right back hard against the brick. It'll fill every crevice, and it'll also go in behind that stone to even make it a firmer adhesion. So yeah, it's a wonderful tool to use. Okay, now here I'm starting the sponging. In the pointing process, I've installed the mortar into the joints. Now I've got to get that mortar nice and smooth. I'm trying to create an old stone wall look here. Moving the mortar around, I'm trying to cover each edge of those veneers. I don't want any edges being shown. So I've got to cover them, and I've got to try and make the surface as smooth as possible so that when I paint the lines, I've got a nice flat surface. See that corner there where the two stones butt up on the corner? I'm filling that, trying to blend it in, trying to cut away both those edges so that it looks like trying to get away from the stone joints as much as possible. Depending on the weather, you've got to leave it a while before you can sponge. You can't sponge if the mortar's too wet. So that's going quite well. I'm just filling in a few of the joints down the bottom there. Keep the water out. So now I've moved to another wall, a different wall, and I'm starting the cleaning of the front stone facings. I've smoothed off the mortar, I've sponged it nice and smooth. Now there's residue goes on the front of the stone, so now it's important to get that off. You don't want the stone drying with the mortar on the front facings of it. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just cleaning up the timber wooden window frame. Now I'm starting the indentation. I've got my level, I've got my small tool. I've waited a while for that mortar to go off slightly. You don't want the mortar too wet when you do the indentation. You don't want the indentation too deep. You just want to be able to see it so that when you paint your lines, you know where you're going to paint. I generally clean the front of the stone before I do the indentation, because this wall here in particular is out in the front of the house, exposed to the sun. So this is going to dry a lot quicker. So I'm onto this, I'm cleaning the front of the stone, and once I've done that, I will set about doing the indentation with the level and the small tool to get all the vertical and all the lines done. Here I am on the internal wall again near the doorway, and I'm using the level again now to do the indentation. Now this indentation needs to match up with the front of the wall there. So you start here on the bigger wall, and when you go around the other side to do that front section there, you've got to get those indentations to line up, so that when you paint your black lines around the corner, everything lines up perfectly. Now here I've finished pointing that wall, I've sponged it, I've cleaned the front of the stone. Now I'm putting a soft brush over it. It's dried off a bit, the mortar, so now I'm just getting the rough edges off the mortar. Anything on the front of the stone, just smoothing it out with the brush, just to give it the fresh look. As you can see, I'm not pressing too hard, because I don't want to upset that indentation that I've done. I'm just getting excess mortar off.
Nice though.
Okay, now I've come out back to the front of the house, and I'm going to work on the bay window gable. I've got the mortar gun out, and as you can see, I'm filling the joints. Now that metal roof there, I've got to get the mortar to sit on that roof underneath that stone to cover the edge of that stone there. So the mortar has to be a perfect mix to get it to sit there, and then once it's stuck there for a while, I'll trowel and sponge it. But there's the mortar gun with the plunger. I'm on the 4-step there, and the plunger goes in. The mortar comes out, fills the joints completely. It'll fill the joints up against the eave line up there. That'll all be filled, and I'll sponge the mortar up alongside the eave joint, make it smooth. Okay, now here I am on the garage pillar. Now that mortar there is dried. It's got an off-white creamy colour. Now there's my masonry brush. Very narrow brush with hair. There's the indentation you can see, and now I'm using my straight edge to paint the lines. Now those lines are a mid-grey, dark grey colour. They're going to give the stone wall an old character look. They're not too dark. I don't want the lines to be jet black because they'll stand out too much. I just want them to highlight the pattern. So as you can see, the mortar covers the edge of the stones. You don't see any edges. You only see the front face of the stone. I'm trying to get away from it being able to see as a veneer. All right, so that's the whole idea of it. Now these lines, they just highlight the pattern. As you can see, there's a definite pattern there. It's called an ashlar pattern. There's 3 different heights to that stone. There's a larger height, which is about 265 mil. Then there's a medium size, then a narrow piece. And you cut them all to length to make them fit into each column of wall. So now I've finished the stone part of the job. The stone's been laid. The pattern is the ashlar pattern. I've done the pointing and the off-white mortar, and I've painted the lines to the joints. This stone's quite attractive. It's got lots of different colours and it's got a textured finish. It's not just a flat face, it's got nice texture to it. So it's quite a nice attractive finish. Now I start the render and the painting.
Why you use this color, the grey? Oh.
I don't want any red bricks showing. I've done my stone, I've got the quoins. Now I've got to render those window ledges and window reveals.
Which you can't take it with you, so you might as well spoil everybody that you know.
I just go around tidying up areas where it's next to the eave, the gutters, just get excess mortar off of anything which is near the stonework.
my first son, he came when it was just a few stones, but all the red brick was still showing.
Yeah.
So he found it harder to picture what it's going to look like, but he'll get a surprise when he comes next time.
Now here I am starting the painting of the render. That render window ledge, window sills, quoins have all dried. So now I'm applying a weather shield paint, an acrylic paint, and I'm going to paint it in a pale biscuit colour. As you can see, it matches in with the window frames. I want the rendered window ledges and quoins to be light in colour. I don't want them to be darker than the stone. The stone is the feature of the house. And there I am just painting the ledge, and as you can see it blends in with the window frame. Now when you're painting render like this and the quoins, I gave it 3 coats of paint. Because it's exposed to the weather, it needs 3 coats of paint to make it last. Normally a matte finish, maybe just a semi-gloss, depending what your preferences are. So, there's the end product. If you've watched all the way through this video, thank you very much. Now, having a look at the job here, there's the sandstone bolstered edge veneer over red brick. There's the quoin, 300mm wide, square jointed. Side of the house is the original red brick. Front facade is done, completed. Now looking at the front of the house here, you'll see the stone, which is a multicoloured stone, quite attractive, with the off-white mortar in the pointing, the black fine lines painted in the joints. The quoins there are painted in a pale biscuit colour that matches in well with the window frame and the fascia boards. I've also painted the window ledge and window reveals. The bay window canopy gable's been done. The stone butts up to the bay window there. The garage pillars have got stone all the way around 3 sides, so it gives a nice solid look. So yeah, that's the end product. It's come up very well. My clients were very, very happy with it. They've been waiting a long time for this, and I'm very happy with the finished product. Thank you for watching the video all the way through. I hope you got some value out of it, and if you get a chance to do this to your own home and you've got the confidence to do it, all the best.